Wouldn't it be amazing if there was like a summer camp except for adults?
How whimsical are we talking?
Oh, all of the whimsy.
You're looking for Hot Alien Summer Camp 2024. It's their third annual event at Starstruck Farms in Lebanon, Tennessee. You just come with an open heart to embrace a magical weekend. There's live entertainment, energy healing, art, and all kinds of workshops.
And I heard Karen Rontowski and Ryan Singer are returning once again to grace the stage with some cosmic comedy. Also, look forward to live music and the Makers Market, where you'll find handmade, consciously created art to pique all of your whimsical curiosities.
Visit the website at hotaliensummercamp.com, where pre-sale tickets are live now. There's lots to discover on the website, including past events, an email newsletter, and a lively Discord community.
And don't forget to check out the Alien Auction, where goodies and readings will be up for bidding. The auction starts March 24th and culminates with an all-day live stream event on March 31st. So I'll be seeing you August 8th through 11th at Hot Alien Summer Camp. Namaste!
Stay tuned after the episode for more information. Hello and welcome to another episode of Interviewing Aliens. I'm your host, Jeff, and today we're joined by Kristina Toth, founder of Cosmos and Eros, a beacon for those seeking to align with their cosmic journey. With a foundation in psychology and counseling, Kristina transitioned to astrology, driven by a personal quest for understanding and healing. She offers a unique blend of archetypal and evolutionary astrology, guiding individuals through their soul's evolution with compassion and insight. Kristina's work illuminates the path for those at life's crossroads, helping uncover their celestial potential and navigate life's transitions with wisdom from the stars. Kristina, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. That was a really, really good introduction.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you liked it. So you and I have been talking for a few months now.
Yeah.
And I first saw you post in the AOD server about upcoming Pluto squares for people. And I was in roughly the time range that you were looking for, and so I reached out to you. But yeah, that's how we met. So I know that you know who Jessa is. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your personal journey, and if you could tie in like how Jess works into that, like how you came into her sphere, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, I was looking through my text to figure out when I started listening to her, and I sent like my first link to my best friend it was when she was doing Awakening OD, and I think I sent them the Charge Your Battery episode, and when I heard those podcasts at around that time from her, which was set in 2022, the beginning of 2022, it was just I had just come out of like a really, really hard time in my life. Like everything kind of imploded in 2021, and then there was a journey of like getting really deep into spiritual practices and uh just dark night of the soul type stuff. And so I was just kind of starting to like breathe again and feel like I should probably like get back into the whole life, like living like a life in the world with like other human beings. And that's when I found her podcast, and it's just like everything that she was saying like matched the experience that I was having. And I was like, oh my God, there's someone else who is kind of understanding what's happening right now. And the advice that she was giving was like right on, like it just clicked with what was going on in my life and the timing and everything. And just the way that she speaks or spoke in that particular podcast and around that time, it was like very strong. Like it was like it had so much strength in it. And I sent it to a friend who I think he was kind of like turned off in the beginning because she, she was like has this kind of forceful way of expressing herself. But for me, I just needed that. I needed someone to like forcefully say these things and like with confidence. So it would give me confidence as well to believe that like what I was experiencing was real and valid. And so I've been listening to her podcast since then.
Right on. Yeah, I had a very similar comeback around to Jessa. I found her in 2017, I want to say, and I found it really interesting. And I was kind of starting to like move into kind of esoteric thought and question spirituality, which I had really put off for a long time. But then again in 2002, when AOD started coming out, I started listening again, and it was at that point that I was like, oh, either I'm crazy and in the same way that this person's crazy, or there's something to it and I should probably look into it. And yeah, so there is something really powerful about her straightforwardness about it and her confidence in it. That yeah, I agree. It really gave me a lot of confidence as well to pursue this kind of thinking. Right on. So, how does astrology fit into all of this? Like, how long have you been into astrology? Tell me about that journey.
Yeah, so I guess it happened at around the same time. So I guess listening to Jessa kind of it felt like approval for like my weirdness, I guess, like that there was like something like good about being like weird and not feeling like other people are really on the same kind of like trip, like because I had tried to lead like a conventional kind of quote unquote normal life up until like everything imploded in 2021. That's when I was kind of like able to wake up and away from the fact that like I can't live a normal life. And so I guess that opened me up into things that I normally wouldn't be interested. Like I had known about astrology from like sun signs and stuff, but it never really resonated with me. Like I'm a Scorpio sun, so whenever I'd see like Scorpio stuff, I'd check it out, but it just didn't feel, I don't know, it just didn't feel right. So I wasn't really into it. But then in 2022, when I was trying to like piece myself back together and like understand what had happened throughout this like these many years where I was like in the dark. Like I say I was in the dark night of the soul in 2021, but it actually started in like 2008. That whole period was just like really really dark for me, and I felt like I didn't understand what was going on. Like I did, but the person that I was with wasn't really hearing what I'm saying. It felt like I was like speaking into a black hole, and it was just very challenging time. But I knew something was happening inside myself and around me. And so when I finally had like enough energy to start like investigating and to seek alternative sources of information, because like my friends and family were not able to provide me with what I needed, that's when, I don't know how, but I think maybe it started with human design, like maybe Jessa or someone said something about human design, and I started looking into that, but it just seemed like too complicated. And I was like, I don't know about this. And then I, created my birth chart and like these different apps. But as soon as I saw my birth chart, I was like, this is it. Like the graphic was the key. Like it wasn't like reading about astrology. It was seeing my natal chart and like the shapes and the relationships between the planets and even where the planets are. Like I just intuitively was like, here it is. This is the answer. If you go into this, you will get the answers you need. And so from there, it was just like intensive study of like, what do these symbols mean and how do you put them together? And it's just, I pretty much like dropped everything in my life and was like, I'm just going to do this until I figure it out. And so that's how my journey with astrology started.
shocked to hear that it was that recent that you started looking into it, because talking to you, you are a fount of knowledge about this. Like you have a way of looking at a chart and seeing things like you said intuitively, and that seems correct. That me looking at a chart, I have no clue. What do you think it is inside of you that was like able to latch onto this and absorb it so well, so quickly?
Well, I kind of had the feeling that like it's something I've done before, like in past lives or something, even though I wasn't really thinking about past lives at the time. And I actually got like a psychic reading 6 months into that whole journey. And she was like, yeah, you were an astrologer and you were an alchemist and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like, I don't know, if that's true or not, but it sort of like fits with my experience that there's some kind of way that I'm like able to tap into. Maybe it's not me, right? Like maybe it's a guide or like a god or an ancestor. Maybe it is me. I don't know. But it's like I feel like I can tap into other sources of knowledge that are not in my own like physical brain. So that like helped me to like pick up things really quickly. Like for the first few months, I was just like going on the internet and just reading everything that I could find. And then at some point, I was like, a lot of this is bullshit. Like, I need to sort of like, the wheat from the chaff, like as they say, like I needed to kind of get rid of some of the bullshit because there's a lot of bullshit on the internet about astrology. And so that's when I started like reading books and taking classes or like following certain teachers that I resonate with. It happened really fast.
Yeah, I would say so. I feel like I have a level of understanding of astrology that you had before you went into all of this, like just from what you're describing. Like, human design was really my pathway into it as well, and that was through Jessa, who was talking heavily about human design at the time. And I remember sitting down in a steak and shake, which is like a diner, with an ex of mine, getting ready to start like this big path, this big journey in my life. And she's like, you need to really look into your stars. She's like, you have some really cool stars with some really cool stuff that you could be utilizing that you are just not right now. And that just made me go, oh, okay, there's something here that I don't understand. But unfortunately, I don't have whatever gene you have that allows effective research to be done, because I got online and saw all the bullshit on the internet about, being a Scorpio and what that means, and what a Libra moon means. And it really didn't resonate very strongly with me. Not in the way that human design did when I first looked at it. Like I looked at human design, the chart and the channels and the descriptions of the gates, and what I had active and what was subconscious versus not subconscious. That made a lot of sense to me. But yeah, looking at a natal chart, it looks like gibberish. But you are able to translate that for me in a way that I didn't think I'd be able to understand, and working with you has been really powerful in that way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel like everyone should tap into astrology in some way. But I think, yeah, more people are more easily able to tap in than others, especially if you're someone that can work with the symbols. Like, I think it's an ability to tap into the symbols and connect with them visually, I think is a big part of, I mean, like I have a friend who we talked about human design for a while when I first discovered it, and he had sort of heard about it, and he was like, ultimately, I don't like the way the chart looks. This is what he said to me. And I was like, yeah, I can feel that too. Like visually, I don't like the way, I mean, there's different ways of, like different sites and apps and people
Or yeah.
present them, the human design thing visually in different ways. But generally, I don't like the aesthetic.
Mhm.
So maybe it's like a aesthetic thing.
Yeah, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
Everybody learns in different ways. I was talking with a friend EJ the other day, um, about the Akashic records,
Hmm.
and my thoughts on the Akashic records, and really any kind of like knowledge like that, is that it's out there, it's available for everyone to tap into. And what we're doing is just applying like graphical interfaces to database of information that's out there. I think it's the part of us that we tap into that's beyond time and space, that has that high level view of everything that happens. And I think we can all get there, and how we get there is different for everyone. And I think astrology is a gateway and a path that a lot of people, choose to hop into. And I'm really excited to be on it now. I feel like I'm learning so much. And yeah, what this kind of goes into another question I had, but what do you view as like the purpose of astrology?
Uh, I mean, I think, different people use it in different ways. Like for example, in Japan, the word that they use for astrologers is uranaishi, which kind of has this kind of like fortune telling kind of vibe to it, like sort of looking into the future and telling you what's going to happen, and like, whether you're lucky or not, or whether you don't have luck or something. And what I do and how I think of astrology is not like that at all. Like, I don't think it's about looking into the future, because I don't think the future is decided. And for me, it's been really helpful just to see patterns, especially looking back, like, because that's how I started. I had a lot of life experience when I found astrology. So I was able to refer back to things that happened in my life to tap into the symbols. Like when I was learning about Pluto, I was like, I knew what was happening with Pluto in my life up until that time. So I had that like resource of lived experience to tap in each of the symbols. So for me, it started with looking back on my life and how these energies had come into my life. And then from there, figuring out how to use those going forward. So it's a more like empowered version of astrology is what I do and some other people do. I really like evolutionary astrology, but I don't like this emphasis on like the hierarchy of like consciousness, or like some people are like more ahead or more spiritual or more whatever. Like, I don't really fuck with that. But the paradigm of evolutionary astrology is useful insofar as it's like we have choices to make, and we can use these energies to grow and evolve if you're on that kind of journey. And that's the kind of journey that I'm on. So I feel like astrology can help us do that. But if someone's not on that journey, then I don't think they'll really like understand what I'm doing.
Are just different avenues to approach astrology and how it's used, and how you utilize it personally in your life. So you focus on archetypal and evolutionary astrologies. Can you give like just kind of a high level description of both of those and how you see that they work together?
Oh gosh. I mean, the whole archetype thing is really complicated. I mean, it's simple, but it's complicated, right? Like it's this idea that there are these forms that exist, and those forms like existed before everything, and sort of like energy is being projected to these forms and manifesting as various things like matter, like us. And yeah, I'm trying to think about how to explain it without getting like overly metaphysical. But it's just like, hmm, everything we see, everything that we do, everything that we are, everything that we're like interacting with, everything that's happening in our life is affected by these energies that we can think of as being embodied in archetypes. Like every little thing, like everything that happens. Like I had a client ask me about something and be like, and they asked me like, is this in, is this in the stars, is this in my astrology? And I was thinking like everything is in the stars. Like you can see everything. Like if I pick up my phone right now, this is written in the stars somewhere, right? If you have access to all of the stars, it's written in there. But normally we're not looking at like all of the stars, because like we can't, like our human brain can't handle that amount of information. So it's like we can concentrate that into like a limited number of archetypes to work with. Like sometimes, I'll put asteroids and other points and stuff on the chart, and it just gets really complicated. But like everything's there. Like if you want to see how life plays out in terms of like patterns or threads, like I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was with an interview with this guy who wrote this book called Psyche and Singularity, and it's like bringing together Jungian thinking with string theory in physics. And like I just started reading the book, so I can't really say what it's all about, but like it's it's there. The like the strings or whatever in physics are somehow tied in with these archetypes, and it's just sort of like a way of conceiving how the cosmos works. I think the archetypes are just like symbols we can use to tap into that. And so archetypal astrology is seeing these planets as representative of archetypes, and then you kind of like build out from there. And evolutionary astrology is more focused on like specifically Pluto and the moon and Neptune. Like there's very key archetypes that that type of astrology is focused on, and it's concerned with the journey of the soul, like through time. There's that idea of like moving through time and moving in a more evolved direction. But archetypal astrology is not like necessarily about moving forwards. It's about like grasping as much of the cosmos as you can via the archetypes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm familiar somewhat with like Jungian theory on archetypes,
Mm,
and so there's a lot of that going on here as well. What about evolutionary astrology? You touched on it a little bit previously,
hmm
but you know, what is the purpose of evolutionary astrology? What's it used for?
Well, the key point with evolutionary astrology is that it has a very specific interpretation of Pluto, and some evolutionary astrologers don't agree, but it was like originated with this guy Jeff Green and his explanations of what Pluto means. And in evolutionary astrology, it's understood that Pluto represents the desires or the like habituated desires, like the inherent sort of path of the soul. So one way of thinking about it is like we have the ocean of consciousness, which would be represented by Neptune. And out of that comes Pluto, which is the individual, unique desires of the soul. And at the tip of the wave, so the wave is Pluto, and at the tip of the wave is the moon. So when you look at a chart in evolutionary astrology, like you would first look at Pluto because it's that like intention, the desires of the soul, and sort of how that's played out across lifetimes. And then the moon is sort of like where we start in this lifetime. And then the moon's nodes are showing you that direction. But it gets complicated depending upon where Pluto is in the chart. But like basically Pluto is the key, the like key entry point in evolutionary astrology. So there's the emphasis is on Pluto and the moon and the nodes.
Okay, and I think I saw on your site that you also utilize something called like erotic astrology. Is that correct? Or is that
Yes,
kind of what is that exactly? Can you get into that?
this is my thing.
Okay, excellent. Let's hear lots about it then.
Oh God, you're gonna put me on the spot. Yeah, this is sort of something that like just kind of came to me when I decided to create a practice that I would like open up to the general public and the world. Like I just first started giving readings to like friends and people in my life, and they really enjoyed it. And I was like, maybe I should do this for like other people. And then I got like a set of readings from another astrologer, and I was like, I could do this so much better. Let me just do this myself. And then that astrologer was like, yeah, just do it, make a website, da da da. And when I sat down to create the content for the website, just everything came out fully formed. Like the paragraphs were just there. I don't know if like I had been working on those paragraphs like in my sleep or subconsciously, or I'm getting it from something else somewhere else, but it just came out fully formed. And this whole idea of erotic astrology is, I mean, I don't think it's I don't think we personally invent anything. Like, I think it was there to be tapped into, right? This like idea. I just don't know anyone else who's doing it. And maybe I just haven't met them yet. And hopefully I will. But for now, like, I only know like what I've been able to access. And it's this idea that the relationship between me and the client, or between me and the person whose chart I'm looking at, like that's the key piece. Like I think for most in general, like the most common way of doing astrology is to have the astrologer look at the chart of the person and then tell the person who they are, right? Like the astrologer, because I know there are astrologers who don't even meet the client. They can just send you like a document or a tape or whatever telling you like who you are and like the advice or whatever. I'm totally against that. Like in my own experience with an astrologer, like she told me some things about my chart and about me that I was like, I don't know, like I don't really see it that way, you know? And so I think it's really important to let the person whose chart you're looking at talk about themselves and open up to you, and it's like a co-creative experience, right? We're looking at the chart together, and I'm not going to tell you who you are. You're going to show me who you are, and I'm going to try to see how that fits in with the chart, and then we work together to like see what the patterns are. So the relationship itself is very important. That's, I think, the key point about erotic astrology. I mean, for me, Eros, um, like what sort of one thing that influenced me in terms of Eros was Audre Lorde's essay, The Uses of the Erotic. Like that was a big piece of me coming out of my dark night of the soul, because I had been in like a extremely anti-erotic marriage life. Like Eros was fucking dead in my life for a long time, and it was horrible. Like I was just, yeah, I was ready to die. And so when I read her essay, it was just like it reminded me how important it is to feel things and to like feel joy and excitement and to have that pull towards things in your life. Like if you don't have that, then it's like how do you even, there's like no way to navigate, right?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
me personally. And so that started to open my eyes to the importance of Eros. And then there's an astrologer named Richard Edelman who has like a really good book about relationships. It's called Through the Looking Glass. And he talks about like Eros versus like stasis, which is talking about the Taurus Scorpio axis. So that Taurus is more focused on stability and stasis and keeping things the way they are, versus Scorpio, which more is more about Eros and change and transformation. And because I have my sun and moon on that axis, it just immediately clicked. I was like, yes, I feel this in myself. I feel this in my life. And because my sun is in Scorpio, like I feel pulled towards the direction of Eros and away from stability and stasis. And so many things have happened in my life. And this will happen if you have a sun in a certain sign, right? Like synchronistically, things happen to you that are like pulling you in the direction of your sun sign. So I was like, I need to use this, right? If this is the direction I'm moving in, then I should incorporate this into my practice. And so that's why Eros is a big part of what I'm trying to do.
Think back to times in my life, specifically a couple years ago when I was coming off of antidepressants, and I kind of had a similar revelation. It wasn't an article; it was an anime that did it for me. I was watching this anime called My Dress Up Darling, and something about it sparked something in me that made me realize I had given up a lot of my personal joys and my desires. And I started to think about, okay, well, when did this happen? You know, when did I start feeling this? And I realized it was really like when I started taking my antidepressants and my anti-anxiety medication, just realizing how much of the emotion and desire within me was being suppressed chemically. Um, Something about that anime made me go, okay, well, I'm going to stop. You know, I'm going to wean myself off these meds and see what it's like to actually feel again. Um, and yeah, there was definitely something to that, and like magic and everything that goes along with that just started appearing as well. Like the synchronicities started showing up. Um, the the community that I had, like, essentially just I'd given up the idea of community. You know, I had a few core friends, but the idea of being a part of a group of people felt so foreign. And that all came back once the emotions and the feelings started to come back. So yeah, I can definitely appreciate the idea that, you know, living a joyless life can really suck it out of you, and making that decision to flip it around and do something different, you know, that can, it's definitely a big pivotal moment in a life. So
I mean, it's like what I think one has to come to accept, and it's because it like happened after my Pluto square. Like that's when my whole life imploded, and like it felt like I was falling off a cliff. Like that was just that's the best way to describe it. I was just pushed off a cliff, or I chose to jump off a cliff. I don't know, but I was falling off a cliff, and it felt really fucking scary, but also really fun. Like, all right, here we go. We're falling off this fucking cliff, and this is like fun as shit. So there's something about like Eros like opening up to the transformation, but you don't know what's going to happen. So you're like opening up and allowing, you know, the universe in like freely, and you don't have any control over that process. So it's quite scary, and it's like inviting chaos into your life. And I just happen to have been in a point in my life where the chaos had already like arrived and like swept through and like fucked up my whole life. So I was like, all right, I know how it works. Like I know what happens when like the chaos comes, and like I'm on kind of on the other side of it and seeing that like it was needed.
feel like this probably just has to do with how you and I met and the conversations we've had, but you almost feel to me like a prophet of the Pluto square. Um, like you talk about it a lot with me, and again, that's how we met. You're like, hey, if you're born between here and here, you might have this big event coming up in your life. Um, can you describe just a little bit about what a Pluto square is? And you don't have to go into how it affected you, but like how can it affect people? You know, you and I have already talked about this, but I think other people out there should probably know that this is going to happen in their lives at some point.
Yeah, you should know it's gonna happen. I mean, the interesting thing is because Pluto has a weird orbit, like it's gonna happen at different points in people's lives. Like I checked to see when my daughter would have hers, and it's gonna be in her 60s. So it's gonna be a totally different experience for her. But for people who are going to be experiencing it around this time, you'll get your Pluto square before the Neptune square, and then you get the Uranus opposition. So there's like a sequence that is happening for people who are experiencing right around this time, and that'll change like depending upon when you're born. So, but I experienced mine at the end of my 30s, the Pluto square, and I mean, I don't want to like, you know, put suggestions into people's heads of like what's going to happen, because I mean it's going to be different, right, for everybody. But
Yeah.
I think for me and like my close friends, we're all kind of on this like I don't know if it's accelerated, but it feels accelerated. Like we're on an accelerated journey of evolution and transformation. And so me and my best friends like had really crazy Pluto squares, like just crazy shit happened. um and yeah, maybe I don't want to say what happened because I don't want to like scare people, but
Sure, sure.
scary shit happened. And but for me personally, I guess it was scary, but I don't I don't like not bad, like not in a bad way. Just sort of I was forced to, well, the first thing that happened was my father suddenly died. So, and my father's like a really big person in my life and my whole life story. And yeah, it was shocking, right? Like I didn't expect him to die at that time. And it just brought up a lot, and it like started a whole thing of like getting deep into the familial like psyche. Like it sort of pushed me into territory that I didn't like I thought I understood, but I didn't really. Like I hadn't really like allowed myself to get into like the mud of like the shit of my family, basically. And so the Pluto square was like pushed me into like some really dark places, basically, that I didn't know I needed to go into. Like I just thought I knew. Like I don't know. I feel like I thought I knew what the fuck was going on like in my life and in my family. But then the Pluto square happened and I was like, wait, maybe I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like, I should just sort of like open myself up to what's happening and just let myself be guided in a way, because I can't use my like, I guess up until that point I'd really tried to use like my brain, like my analytical mind, to like understand people and situations and myself. And I had sort of come to a point where like I wasn't able to make sense or like fix what I felt was like wrong in my life. And the Pluto square was like, okay, well, let's just, let's just tear all this shit down and let's just like look at what's really here. Like, what's the like very kind of bleak reality. Um, and, but for me, like the Neptune square, and this isn't gonna, I mean, this again depends on where you're born, but the Neptune square happened right after the Pluto square. So it was like a transition from like everything imploding and like being pushed into the underworld, and then Neptune square happens and you're kind of just like, whoa, like everything gets really like weird, like wavy and foggy, and like just it was comforting for me because it was like, yeah, dude, you have no idea what the fuck's going on. Like no one does. So I felt like kind of comforted by the like mystery of it all. And because it happened in that sequence, like I'm just such a fan of it. But again, it's not going to happen in that same sequence for everybody. But um, I guess why I'm a fan of the Pluto square is it's just, it feels like kind of like, this is going to be kind of gross, but when you like have like a cyst or something and you like puncture it and like the pus comes out, it's kind of like that. Like,
Right. Yeah. It's gross, but boy, is it relieving. Yeah.
yeah, it's fucking gross. It's really gross and like painful, and like you don't know like if you're even supposed to be like poking a hole in the thing, but like once the stuff comes out, you're like, oh my God, like I needed to get that shit out. Like I just feel so much better now.
Yeah. So Pluto square, the cyst. I like it. So I'm curious, what are some of your like daily spiritual practices? What is spirituality to you aside from astrology?
Like I guess, I mean, when I was little, like when I was a little kid, like I always felt like I had someone to talk to, and I went to like a Christian daycare and then a Catholic school, so I was kind of taught that that's God. So I thought that I was talking to God, but now I think maybe it's more like guides or like my higher self. I don't know if I would call that God, but I was always talking to something, and I never felt like alone. Like I had a really kind of fucked up childhood with like very like, yeah, just very challenging and a lot of like lonely times, but I never felt alone even though I was like alone. And I always felt like I could ask for help, when stuff got challenging. And I guess so in terms of like spirituality, I was always open to that, just being able to like talk to whoever, like something that doesn't exist in the material realm. And hmm, and I mean, I guess as I got like older and was sort of grossed out by religion and stuff, I was like, well, let me just do my thing, like not so much trying to like tap into that guidance, but I was just like, let me just do my thing, right? Let me just like fuck around and find out, like in my own way, without that kind of guidance. But then of course, like I got into trouble doing it that way. Like I would like fuck up in my life, and then, but you keep trying, or I kept trying, right? And then I came to Japan like right after college. And immediately when I came to this country, like I just felt like that realm was really close. like so much more like there in a way that it wasn't when I was in the States. Like it just felt like maybe you could call it the magical realm or something. I don't know. Even just like how the moon would appear in my life, or how I would see like fish in a river or something, which like everything sort of had more of that like aura of meaning in a way that it didn't when I was in the States. So I was kind of like, and it's not like anybody was like, oh, I mean, I guess some people think about Japan as being like a spiritual place or something. I don't know, but I didn't think about it in that way. Like I just happened to, like some fucked up shit happened my third year of college, like between my third and fourth years of college, like some crazy shit happened. And I had a friend who had a house in Japan. And I was like, because I was like such a mess, he was like, just go stay in my house. So I just went to like stay in his house and just like hang out. So I didn't really have any interest in like coming to Japan, and I didn't think about it as like being any kind of like spiritual special thing. I was like, it's just another country and it's just a way of like getting away from like everything that was happening to me when I was in America. But this is a magical place. Like there is sort of I don't know, it's like how people say like itadakimasu, like there's a thing that you say before you eat, and like you put your hands in a certain way, like it's a magical thing that people are doing that's happening there, but like they don't think about it as magic. It's just like that's just like normal life, or like putting salt by the front of your house, like they have these little like pyramids of salt. Like I don't think, it's thought about as magic. It's just like that's a part of regular everyday living. So that sort of made me feel like spirituality was normal in a way. Like, and they're like shrines and temples and places you can go, like even not just not just like buildings, but like you'll go to the mountains and there'll be like a little, gate or something like on the top of a mountain. So it's not even like there's a building, but it's like the mountain itself is like recognized as a sacred space, a sacred place. And so no explanations. You don't need an explanation. You just know when you go to that place that it feels like a sacred place and a sacred space. And I had had experiences like going trekking in the mountains where I had like very mystical experiences, but like not trying to have them, just being open to what is there. And also, Japan is a very safe country. So it's like in America, you can't, I know, I lived there until I was like 20. You can't just walk around open, like wide open. I mean, I have, and I would get in like really fucked up situations. And it's like, it's scary. You can't just, I mean, maybe you can. I don't want to say you can't, but like for me, it was very hard to walk around in like an open state of existence, right? In America, it just feels like dangerous, and like you have to be paranoid, and like part of that is the culture, right? Like you have to be whatever paranoid because like you might get murdered and stuff like that. But it's not like that here. So it was like a natural, like I feel like almost just like coming to Japan is almost like a retreat, even if you don't like say it's a retreat. Like if you don't need to have like a schedule and say you're gonna meditate from like 5 to 6 or whatever. You just can come and just feeling safe enough to like open up to like the mystical side of life, like that's enough, right? And so that sort of like opened me up back to like talking to whoever it was that I talked to when I was a child, but I was still trying to like just do my own thing. And it's when like I got married to someone who was like just not a great person, that I started to really struggle with just doing things on my own. And at some point, I was like, I need help. I need assistance from the divine. Like I can't do this alone. Like I keep trying to do it alone. I keep trying to like think of the steps I need to take. Like I keep trying to think of like practical measures or whatever. Like, and it's just not working. Every time I try to do something in like a practical way, it doesn't make sense. And when I try to talk to people about how to like get out of the relationship, like no one, like really knows, or they're just like, yeah, just get out of it. But it's not that simple, I mean, that's the thing about astrology is it also helps you see how, we have these like relationships that are fucking complicated and you can't just like jump in and jump out. I mean, that people think you can, but you obviously can't. And I think that's why we have this whole like talk about the twin flames and all that stuff. Is because you have relationships where you just can't get out of it in like the normal ways. And so right around 2015, 2016, 2017 is when I had a friend from the States come visit me, and I hadn't seen this person in like a long time, and it reminded me that I had like a spiritual life before. At some point I just forgotten about it, and so I started like reading spiritual books, and I came across the work of Chogyam Trungpa, who is from Tibetan Buddhism, the Vajrayana path, and reading his text just sort of like opened me up to something else, like another way of thinking about how one could live their lives, that it's like, yeah, it's just not like the normal conventional paradigm. It's like that's not how it really works, right? So that's when I started to try to like actively tap into like my own spiritual side or essence and use that in like a more active way, and not just like, at first it started with me asking for help, right? Like just asking for help every single day. But then like when the help arrived, or like when, like for a long time I was asking for the truth. There was something I couldn't see, and I was like, I need to be shown the truth. Like I know something is hidden and I can't see it. So show me, show me, show me, show me. And once I was shown the thing I needed to see, I was like, this is fucked up. Fuck you. What?
Uh,
It was bad.
oh wow. So I mean, obviously, astrology has to inform a lot of what you do, but how, if you had to give someone a suggestion on how to utilize astrology in their daily life, what would you say?
Well, first I would say get a copy of your natal chart and just look at it. Try to get one that's accurate. Use like astro.com or something, right? Like there are other sites that are not as accurate. I think astro.com is pretty accurate. So I would like get an accurate copy of your natal chart and just look at it. I mean, just think about it as like a mandala. Like you don't have to know what anything means in the beginning. Like I didn't know what anything meant in the beginning. I didn't know what any of the symbols meant, but I just knew there was meaning in that symbol and having the shapes and the colors. Like there's an app called Time Nomad, which has like a, maybe it's, I don't know if it's for everyone, but for me, it's just like a black kind of background, and the way the colors, they just kind of like pop out. Like visually, it's just really nice, the app, how it shows you the chart. I would say just like meditate on your own natal chart. Like you don't have to like look anything up in the beginning. Just spend time with it that way. And then things will pop out at you over time. And if like one symbol pops out, like look it up, like write it down, maybe just look at the symbol for a while. If you want to know what the symbol means, then look up the meaning of the symbol. And then you go from there. I think that's the best way to work with astrology. I mean, I feel like you have to start with yourself, right? Like, I don't recommend like getting an intro to astrology book and just studying like what is the sun, what is the moon, because it's like it depends on your chart whether the sun, whether the moon, like what's going to be the most important planet to you. It depends on your chart. So you really just need to look at your chart first, and then you'll see what's most important to you, and then you go from there. Like that's the kind of, I feel like that's the key into astrology for each person, is your own natal chart. And it'll take a while to get through it. I mean, it took me a while, and I spent like like hours and hours every day And it still took me like a few months, right, to get to like really understanding it. So, and then also you can look at the, the chart of the place where you are, like the current transits, and again, do the same thing, but that's going to be changing all the time, so it won't be as easy as if you're working with a static chart. Does that make sense? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So cosmosanderos.com, your website, is that the best place to go to find out more about your services, what you offer, how to contact you, that info?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, it's a great site. When you said that it all just kind of came flowing out of you, that was really shocking to me because I don't do a lot of web design, but I do a bit, and it all felt very cohesive, and I felt like I got a very good understanding of who you are and what you're looking to share with people by going through it. So I definitely encourage people to go take a look at it. Tell me more about what people can expect when they sign up for some readings with you.
I mean, it's a combination of like, I just want to have fun. Like, I just want to have fun using astrology and like helping people better understand their natal charts and sort of what the energies are that they have available to them to work with in this lifetime, and helping to understand timing in their life and sort of the patterns and the things that helping to process experiences that they've had, and how to like extract wisdom from those experiences that they can use moving forward, and how to prepare for new phases in life. I just feel like for me, because of how my chart is and my energy is, I often meet people when they're at a turning point in their lives, like when they're really having to sort of shift and move into a new direction. So I feel like I can provide guidance into like showing you where you came from and what are the possibilities for moving forward, just so that the person can feel more aligned with the cosmos, basically.
All right. Well, Kristina, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really, really appreciate it. You're a pleasure to talk to. And again, a fount of knowledge for astrology. Anybody who wants to find her can find her at cosmosanderos.com. Is there any other social media or anything like that you'd like to plug?
I'm not really on social media very much.
That's valid and the correct thing to do, in my opinion. So, all right, cosmosanderos.com. You can find our show at interviewingaliens.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Kristina, I can't wait to talk to you again.
All right, see you soon.
Have a great one.
Bye-bye.
Ever felt like you're wandering through a world that doesn't quite fit? Like you're a square peg being nudged into a round hole? Maybe you've caught yourself gazing up at the stars, pondering the mysteries that seem to slip through the fingers of conventional wisdom. Do esoteric beliefs resonate with you more than everyday chatter? Is there a voice inside you whispering that there's infinitely more to this universe than what meets our 3D eyes? If any of this sounds familiar, if any of these questions stir something deep within you, then you might just be the alien we're looking for. This isn't about being from another planet. It's about feeling like you're out of place in this one. It's about believing in the extraordinary, the spaces between. So tell us, do you feel that call, that pull towards something, somewhere that defies the ordinary? If so, welcome. Your mothership, Hot Alien Summer Camp, is calling you home. Are you ready to answer that call? To step into a space where your unique beliefs aren't just accepted but celebrated? Imagine a place where the extraordinary is the norm and the mysteries of the cosmos are the evening's main topic of discussion. A retreat where every workshop, every activity, and every shared meal is an opportunity to explore what lies beyond our conventional 3D experience. Did you find yourself nodding along just then? Feeling that spark of excitement at the thought of connecting with others who share your curiosity for the unknown, then it's no coincidence you're hearing this right now. This is your invitation to join us, to become a part of a community that doesn't just ask the big questions, but revels in them. And what's a gathering of aliens without a little interstellar entertainment? Prepare to laugh with beings who understand your humor, as we bring you live comedy from cosmic minds of Ryan Singer and paranormal Karen Rontowski. Their insights and wit are as boundless as the universe, promising an experience that's as enlightening as it is hilarious. So, if you're ready to leave behind the world of round holes for a place where every square peg finds its place, a hot alien summer camp awaits. From August 8th through 11th in Lebanon, Tennessee, we're not just creating a retreat, we're forming a constellation of like-minded souls, each shining their unique light. Are you one of us? Are you ready to explore the depths of your alien soul among friends who understand that it's time to beat 'em up to Hot Alien Summer Camp? Your space in the cosmos is reserved. All you need to do is claim it. Visit hotaliensummercamp.com. Pre-sale tickets are on sale now. Let's embark on this cosmic journey together.